Hello, my brothers and sisters, and welcome to another episode of Off the Beaten Path, the show that looks at paranormal events both historically as well as in modern-day times. As always, I'm your host, Rev.hagen, and as always, I'd like to welcome our listeners at SCRMradio.com. That's SCRMradio.com, the only 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year horror live streaming radio station on the planet. You know why? Because Halloween is not just a holiday, it's a way of life. That being said, let's get right into the show. We only have a half an hour roughly, and we've got a huge topic to go over today. We're going over both demons and exorcisms. So let's get right to it. Now, historically, demons have been in almost every culture on the planet. The Middle East, Asia, Western Europe, excuse me, the tribes of the Americas, even in South America and Central America, have some form of demon in almost literally every culture on the planet. There are different schools of thought on them, for sure, and what they're about and what their motivations are. But there are actual demons pretty much in every culture. When you look at Christianity and Catholicism, Christianity, and I should preface this by saying not every Christian believes in the devil, and not every Christian believes in demons, but their religion does. When it comes to Christianity, you've got Lucifer that had his bid for the throne, right? That tried to take over heaven from God, and was cast out by the archangel Michael. And a third of the host of heaven, a third of the angels of heaven, were cast in the pit with him, and that's where you get your demons, right? As far as Christianity is concerned. When you get into that particular gig of demons, they each have their own name. They're all lieutenants or captains or generals in Lucifer's army. There is literally ranking. What they do to people, the different horrible things they each do in their each individual ways to people, their names, their individual names, and their sigils, the symbols that they have for those demons. It's a very complicated process. Not that it's any less complicated in any other pantheon or any other culture. When you look at China, for example, China, they believe that the Yangjing is their word for demon, right? Which is the most common Chinese word for demon is Yangqing. With very few exceptions, they cause havoc wherever they go. They are just inherently bad guys, right? In Japan, you've got the yokai, which is not really a term for demon, though. It's a ghost or strange apparition, a phantom. They call the yokai. They've also got the obake and the bakmano. The bakmano are actually the shape-shifting. The bakmano and the other ones are actually shape-shifting. But they also have things like the kappa, which is the looks a lot like a turtle. They've got the tengu that has wings. And the reason I bring these things up is that a lot of what they had termed spirits or demons are now part of anime, which is a huge cultural phenomenon in Japan, which most of you guys know. But they're actually, if you go to like Wikipedia right now and you typed in Japanese demons, it would list a bunch of names. Now, if you highlighted those names and Google searched them and looked at the images, you'd see nothing but anime, primarily. It's crazy. And the reason I bring that up is that most of the ideas that Japan has concerning their demons, most of the information they get is from the Edo period, and the artists in the Edo period that would draw these beautiful, elaborate drawings of these demons, with, of course, the Japanese calligraphy next to it explaining what it was and the whole 9 yards. But because they were artists, they put their own spin on these things, right? And which artists are apt to do. And that it's gone full circle now, right? And that those same demons, those same images are now a part of anime. And some of them are good, and some of them are bad, but they're all a part of anime. Excuse me 1 second here. And yes, this is a Pico Mundo grill for those of you listening. Mug, which is where Odd Thomas worked in Pico Mundo. For Dean Koontz fans out there, which I'm a diehard Odd Thomas fan. Pre-movie, thank you very much. Always been a big fan of Odd Thomas, of The Odd One. But again, I digress. Well, there's another example. I'd see ghosts and spirits and all kinds of things, right? And that's more of a modern day thing that we'll get into later. You've got the other side of the coin, or even in Japan a little bit, but not a little bit, quite a bit actually, but the Inuit believe that everything has a spirit, right? Everything. There's even a different spirit for the different kinds of waves, the different kinds of winds that they have, different kinds of rains. Each has its own spirit attached to it, neither good nor bad. In their view, it's how you approach this. If you're not respectful to the spirit of something, and you do something to that, or you need something from that, it's going to turn around and bite you in the butt because you weren't respectful, because you were a dick. I guess the lesson there is don't be a dick, for sure. But that's how they view things. Nothing is inherently good or inherently evil, right? It just is until you get into that gig. There's a tribe in Africa, in Central Africa. A lot of the tribes in Central Africa actually believe the same thing. Everything has a spirit. It's how you approach it. Now, Japan, the Shinto religion in Japan is very similar to that. They're more deities, and there is literally a different deity for this kind of wind, for that kind of wind, for the different kinds of rain, the waves, the whole nine yards. As an island nation, that makes a lot of sense. In Babylon, everything was about demonology. In fact, if you were a demonologist in Babylon, in ancient Babylon, you had a good seat at the table, my brothers and sisters. It was a very well-respected profession. They believed that there were different demons for your head, for your body, for your arms, your legs. The different organs in your body had a different demon that needed to be dealt with, especially if you were having an ailment. And there were ways to appease those demons so you wouldn't get sick, so you wouldn't get a headache, right? Let alone everything else that walked the earth or that sat on the earth had its own demon, not just spirit, but a demon. So in ancient Babylon, again, if you were a demonologist, you were the man or the woman. Who knows? Women could have been demonologists back in the day too. I believe they were still part of a more of a dualistic system with both male and female, but I could be wrong about that, so don't leave nasty comments. And then there's Buddhism. And Buddhism, a lot of people say, well, Rev, come on, it's Buddhism. There's no demons in Buddhism. I disagree. There are so many different types of hell in Buddhism, it's not even funny. And you should know that, my brothers and sisters, if you've watched Big Trouble in Little China. And if you haven't watched Big Trouble in Little China, well, clearly your parents didn't raise you right and you're a terrible person. And you need to remedy that right now by going out and watching Big Trouble in Little China. There's even a scene where they're in the hell of upside down sinners. It's the greatest movie. Total cheeseball in such a wonderful, wonderful, amazing way. Which kind of brings us right into how I want to transition into modern day times. That's how we see demons in hell now, pretty much is through the media, right? Through movies like Big Trouble in Little China, like The Evil Dead, where Bruce Campbell as Ash reads from the Necronomicon and wreaks havoc all over the place in that cabin in the woods, right? Bruce Campbell, who's my personal hero, which probably explains quite a bit. Phenomenal movies. But even in TV, you've got Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Supernatural, which really is where, that show's been running for 12 years. It's so much part of America consciousness, it's not even funny. Even if you've never watched Supernatural, you know that a demon is the black smoke that goes in them, turns their eyes black, and possesses them, right? That's how people view demons nowadays, primarily through cinema and television. And it's not even that. There's tons of other shows. There's a demon bounty hunter show on the Wii channel, of all places, which actually is not a bad show, about this girl who, she was one of the gals from American Pie, not American Pie, yeah. She was in American Pie and American Beauty. The blonde from American Beauty plays this demon hunter that's possessed by a demon. And that demon eats the other demons. That's how she gets rid of demons. Yeah, but again, even though it's on the Wii channel, which I'm, as a large citizen, tattooed male in our society, I'm not real comfortable watching the Wii channel, but that's not a bad show, I gotta say. But then it gets into the most of the old cinema, and at least the horror cinema anyway, when it comes to demons. Sure, you have the occasional movie like Demon Knight, Tales from the Crypt, where the demons are trying to take over the world, right? Which is my buddy Charlie's favorite movie. But most of them deal with possession. And by that, I mean like movies like The Exorcist, which was the original, right? The Last Exorcism, which I love that movie for reasons I'll explain a little later. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, The Rite, The Possession, the literal possession. There's even a movie out there about this box that's this Jewish cursed demon box that this little girl opens, and that she kind of ingests a demon that's based on a true story. I've actually looked at that case. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And that box that does actually exist is in a storage unit, and the guy that owns it now won't tell anybody where it is, because they really believe that box is cursed by a demon. And anybody that owns it, and it actively owns this box, is going to be cursed and have horrible things happen to them. Yeah. So that's kind of demons in popular culture. Now, what I'd like to deal with now is actually exorcisms. Not just in cinema, but the real gig. And I know you're looking at me like, Hagen, Rev, brother. Seriously? Yes, seriously. Now, here's the deal. In Western culture, there's really two thoughts on exorcisms, right? There is the Catholic exorcism, which is a long and complicated process, even to get approved, right? What you have to do if you're a Catholic and you believe that you or somebody that you know is possessed, that you want an exorcism performed, basically, is you go to your local priest, and he looks at the situation. And if he thinks this is a real gig, that it's not mental illness, he'll send it up the chain. I'd like to say something about that before we go any further, though. I've had two cases as a paranormal investigator in my 30 years of experience on exorcism. One, the guy was so full of crap it wasn't even funny. I was asked to assist in this exorcism. And the guy performing the exorcism, who at the time I kind of had respect for, and I completely lost it that night, walked this woman through the process that he was exorcising this demon from, right? And they started feeding off each other, right? He's telling her this. He started to speak in Sumerian, which is a dead language, which nobody can actually speak in. And halfway through it, I walked out. I thought it was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I've seen another one that was the real gig, and man, it took a very long time, and it wasn't just one sitting. It took a long, repetitive time. And guys that can do that kind of thing have a focus and a devotion and a will that you need for that kind of gig that I don't possess. If I'm being honest, I don't have that kind of crystalline focus or that no doubt faith, okay, in a deity. Yeah, and I am a legal reverend, I must tell you. I'm a priest of Wicca, and I'm ordained both in physical church and on two different churches online. I can legally marry somebody on the Church of Dudism, which I became a minister of because I just thought it was fantastic. Come on. The Church of Dudism, Dude from The Big Lebowski, there's a church. It's just freaking awesome. But I can legally, talk about a weird world that we live in, I can legally marry people through that process. Hello. But anywho's, I'm also an actual minister, an actual reverend, actual priest of Wicca, if you will. And I still don't have that clarity of devotion, because my faith is a little different than Christianity, that it would take to be an actual exorcist. I don't believe anyway. Like I said, I've assisted in two, and one was crap. So, that being said, I felt that I needed to get out there. Again, in Catholicism, if your priest thinks it's cool... the reason I brought the whole thing up, I'm sorry, forgive my brain fart there, is that I've had other people approach me about exorcisms, right? That they feel that one of their loved ones is possessed by the devil or possessed by a demon. And the first thing I'll ask is about schizophrenia, any history of mental illness, temporal lobe epilepsy, to go see a doctor first. As a culture, we would rather be possessed by a demon than admit that there's some sort of mental problem, which is usually like a chemical imbalance in the brain and can be treated, for God's sakes. That's really, really important that people understand that most of the time these people are mentally ill and they need help. They don't need somebody saying old hoodoo voodoo over them to drive out a devil, when what they need is some medication and some therapy to get through what they're going through right now. Now, that being said, when all that is discounted, when all that's been dealt with, and you're just left with the possibility of being possessed. And some of these guys with enough experience, I really believe, can tell. Again, in Catholicism, you work it up the chain. And anywhere in that process, it can be kibosh, and the exorcism won't take place, right? Your priest, he goes up to the next level, the local bishop. Now, if he okays it, most of the time, the exorcism is going to take place, okay? It doesn't have to go all the way back to Rome. Sometimes it does, but not always. There was a guy, one of the movies that I didn't mention about possession was Deliver Us from Evil. This guy, Ralph Sarchi, and Father Malachi Martin. Now, in the movie, Father Malachi Martin is this, good-looking young Latina guy that, drinks at a bar and gets hit on by women, and he's still, he's this flawed hero, and he's totally awesome, right? Not so much in real life. He was an older Jesuit that had left the order, but had left Rome, renounced his vow of poverty, and supposedly chastity, but was allowed to stay with the Jesuit order, to do work and to go about and frankly make some money. He wrote a ton of books, and he was a big deal in the exorcism gig. Now, this guy's been vilified and deified, right? It all depends on your perspective on this guy. I personally think that he was an amazing man. His enemies, one of his enemies in the church, guy that you could tell was very bitter about Father Martin, was like, this guy fell in love with my wife and tried to have an affair, and he had all these horrific things to say about Father Martin. And other people have nothing but praise, like Sergeant Sarchi, nothing but praise for this guy. The other people that have helped him out over the years, one was an ex-CIA guy that used to drive him around, have nothing but phenomenal things to say about him. There's actually a documentary on him right now on Netflix, if you want to check that out. Really cool. But he didn't take it up the chain. Father Martin, that's one of the reasons he renounced his vow, so he could do what he thought was very important work. And I agree with that. I thought it was important work too. So he and Sarchi would help him on some of the stuff too. He would come to him. He was a police detective, and he would come to him and say, "This is what I think is going on. We got this guy interrogation. This is what I think is happening. What are you thinking?" He ended up actually retiring from the New York City police department to pursue this full time, pursue fighting evil, full time. And then there are so that's kind of the Catholic view. Now, but in the Catholic view too, there's the Great Rite of Exorcism, right, which is an actual exorcism. And then there's the lesser rite of exorcism, which is like, believe it or not, baptism. When you baptize a baby, you are casting out all, this is pure little baby that you're giving to the love of Christ if you're a Christian. And the parents renounce evil and renounce Satan and all his works, right? Which is known as one of the lesser rites of exorcism. In other Christianity, there is two different forms of even possession, right? There's the ecstatic possession that you start talking in tongues and, and getting crazy and, feeling the Holy Spirit enter you and feeling ecstatic from it, right? But then they also believe that demons, bad guys, can possess you as well. But when you look at, what's interesting to me is when you look at voodoo, where part of their religion is called riding the loa, which is where you allow the different entities in voodoo, and you allow these gods, right, to enter your body. They look at us as windows to this world. And so they enter the voodoo priest or priestess to experience this world and to honor their flock and to have their, this mutual love between the Loa and its disciples, right? Which is looked at as evil. But the Christian one is looked at as, well, no, that's just ecstatic. But when you look at the two when they're possessed by either the Holy Spirit or the Loa, it is so similar that if I didn't tell you it was voodoo or Christian, you would know the difference, honestly. But then there's other forms of exorcism that I want to talk about. And Christian exorcisms that the last exorcism hit on, right? That they're cons. 99% of these guys are con artists. Bob Larson. I don't usually call people out, but Bob Larson, look him up on YouTube. And he literally believes, sort of, that he's a warrior for God and that he can take on any demon, any devil, because Bob Larson's going to take him on. And Bob Larson is a con man. Bob Larson is there to take your money and to take advantage of the weak. And anybody that will use God or any rendition of God to make money or to take advantage of people is the worst form of scum that I know. These are desperate people that are hurting, that are looking for guidance. And these dickless pieces of shit like Bob Larson are going to go out there and, under the guise of God, take your money because a demon is possessing you? No, Bob, throw them into therapy. Maybe talk to these people for a few minutes, all right? Oh, it makes me so crazy. And they're always in these beautiful, huge churches that I use him as an example. There's other guys out there, but he's the big one on YouTube. And yeah, I think you're a piece of crap, brother. Absolutely. Guys like him literally make me sick. I think they have no place on YouTube or on the planet. Now I'm just getting crazy, right? I know, it just really gets under my skin, right? What's funny, it reminds me of the guys that I had a misspent youth, right? When I came out of it, I was watching this evangelical guy that used to say, if you've got $20, send me that last $20, and I'll forward your prayer in my cathedral of faith to God, and your prayers will be answered. And he'd go into trances, and he'd start quoting the Bible in his trances. And people would send this guy scads of money. By the time, and he got indicted for some kind of fraud years later on 2020, but by the time he was wearing $5,000 suits, reconstructive surgery. When I first started watching this guy, he was in tacky, crazy-looking suits. Makes me crazy. So that's pretty much exorcism. I didn't get into Christ being the first exorcist because I'm not a Christian. But in the Bible, that's the way they look at it. And if you're a Christian, again, I'm not down in any religion here. If you're a Christian, if it helps you and it feels like it brings you closer to the infinite, gives you better understanding of our world, and brings you better to your conception of God, more power to you. I'm not one of these guys that thumps any religion, honestly. Just people that try to take advantage of other people within those religions. Yeah, I'm coming for you. I don't like bullies of any fashion, and you're a bully to me, Bob Larson. Not to bring you up again by name, but there you have it. So that's the show. That's our show on demons and exorcism. Believe me, I know there's a lot more to talk about on both of these subjects, but to cram this stuff in a half-an-hour format is tough to do. So thanks for bearing with me on this. If you think I'm full of crap, throw it down in the comments. If you think that I attacked Bob Larson falsely, throw it in the comments. Let's talk about it. If you think that there's a topic that you want me to talk about, throw it in the comments or send it to my email at rev.hagen@gmail.com, which will be listed down below for you to take a look at too. If you've got a case you want me to look at with Where Angels Fear to Tread, throw it in the comments or shoot me an email. So there you have it, my brothers and sisters. As always, you keep those heads up, my brothers and sisters. All right, bye-bye.